It's time to bring you yet another amazing episode. And now, welcome your host.
Good to have you on the show. This is Omobola Stephen, the host of Live Well Live by Omobola Stephen. On the show, we focus on personal development and self-improvement topics because we've come to realize with the passage of time the importance of embracing personal development and self-improvement along the course of our line, because when we do such, we tend to find ourselves along the path, and in finding ourselves, we realize that there's so much bounties that life has in store for us if we don't give up. Now, embracing personal development and self-improvement is not coming easy. It's not going to be an easy task to do. But I tell you, when we constantly and consistently improve on ourselves, we tend to find ourselves in a better version of who we once were, and we become a better version of who we're supposed to be. And now, this is the mission and the focus of Lawelli Bamobola Stephen. We like to offer disruptive yet constructive mindship conversations that is going to pivot the changes you and I need in this side of eternity. Today, I will be talking about how we can create great habits and the power of compound habits. And I have an expert on the show who also double as a golf instructor. I have Eric Cogorno, who is the golf coach, an entrepreneur, and also a personal development enthusiast. Welcome to me with me on the show, Eric Cogorno.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Love that intro. Love the purpose of the show and look forward to chatting here today.
It's an honor to have you on the show once again, and we're looking forward to having a worthwhile time on today's show. So I'll have to kick the show with this question. Is life really a result of our habits?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, something that I wish I would have known earlier in my life was that I could change my habits, my daily small things that I would do on a consistent basis, and have that be the thing that could totally change who I am and what my life looks like. I think when I grew up, I was sort of had more of a fixed mindset, like, hey, kind of people are who they are. I am how I am. I'm kind of either good at something or I'm not good at something, and that's just what it was. And frankly, the environment I grew up around was like that. The people I was around, my family, etc. And it wasn't until I got introduced to personal development through watching Jim Rohn videos that I found about a decade ago that I was introduced to this idea of like being able to improve yourself in personal development. Jim Rohn used to always say in his videos, spend more time focused on improving yourself than you do at your job. And that's the first time I ever heard someone say that. I'm like, what the heck does that even mean? And when I continued to listen to him, basically what he was talking about was building better habits, like us creating better habits and putting things in place daily that can improve ourselves, ultimately can improve our lives. And we don't need to be who we were before or good or bad at certain things. We can basically be who we decide we want to be able to be, right? Based on picking the correct habits and then doing them on a consistent basis. So I could talk habits with you for probably 10 hours in a row, but that's sort of the quick version of like there's my life I consider kind of pre me finding personal development and understanding habits, where I was less happy, had less freedom, less financial security, etc. And then post finding personal development and creating habits where that completely changed my life. So I'm about as big a believer in that as humanly possible.
All right, now you've been consistent with some habits for the past 7 years. I hope I'm right on that. So, was there any time in your life when you felt like, oh, I'm going to change any of those habits, right? You know, sometimes in our life we can just feel like we're doing the same old thing, and we just feel like, we are stuck in the rut, or we're just in the same point. Let's talk about how you were able to get a mind shift in this regard.
Yeah, I had a very clear pivot point when I was about 20. So I just turned 36. When I was like 27, turning 28, I had been teaching golf since I was 18. And I wasn't like hard physical labor, but I was kind of like just tired of it, just burnt out outside in the sun all day. And I was frustrated, burnt out, didn't really have any vision of where I wanted my life to go. And my friend happened to text me. I had a couple things happen all at one time, depending upon what anyone who's listening believes in, God, universe, etc. I had a couple things happen at the same time. It's hard to believe it was just coincidence. I felt very burnt out. And that same week, my friend sent me a YouTube video from a guy named Tony Robbins. And I had never heard of Tony Robbins or seen him before. I watched the video, and for whatever reason, it didn't really do anything for me. But right next to that in the little recommended box was this video from Jim Rohn. And it was a 2 hour video. It's called The Day That Turns Your Life Around. I've since watched that video multiple times a week for the past 7 years. It's so darn good. And he just, when he talked, you know, when you hear someone who speaks so clearly and simply, but like the concepts are profound and life-changing, everything he said just felt like it like hit me right in the heart. And he introduced me and was talking about personal development. And so I think I was able to change my habits to answer your question because I was in the right time and felt enough pain. I think the reality is like we're able to change our lives more when we're at a pain point or like reach a rock bottom compared to like chasing the pleasure. And so I felt pain of just being burnt out, right? And frustrated with where my life was at. I found Jim Rohn. He had that concept I mentioned before. We started talking about like improving yourself and personal development. And I was 27. I went to school my whole life. I went to college. I got good grades. I never heard of personal development. No one ever told it to me. I never heard it. It wasn't something I grew up with. And so I wasn't really aware of that. But when I started to look into that, and he said, improve yourself, what I did was I started to look at people who I thought were successful, people that I admired or looked up to. And I just started to look, okay, like what do they do on a daily basis that makes them successful? Because I'm not a person like, I'm not good at doing like a million things in one day, but I'm good at doing one thing a million days in a row. Like I can be consistent with something. So I was looking at like what are the small things I could do each day, every day for a long period of time that would compound into me being different. And so I looked at these people and I tried to find what do like 80% of them all do. And of course, if you do this, there's a couple clear things, right? Like they work out, right? Like most of them will get up early. They do mindfulness meditation. There was reading in there every day. So I created basically a daily list that became my daily non-negotiables, where I was like, okay, so long as I do these couple, four, five, six things, I'm going to win the day. That's how I looked at it. Like, no matter what, as long as I get these done, I'm going to be moving in the right direction. And I only found that because I heard Jim Rohn talk about personal development, and I only heard him talk about personal development, and I think like heard it because I was in a position where I felt how I felt. I was kind of in that burnt out state. So I think getting out of a rut and changing the habits you have is easier if you feel enough pain, part one. And then part two, if you can see someone who's doing it that's having success so that you can create a belief that something different's possible. Like where I grew up, when I did that personal development, just to give an idea here for the audience, and I created this dream life that I wanted to create, did the math on it. I figured out I needed to start making like $1.2 million a year was my like dream life goal. And at this point, I was maybe making like 80 grand a year. No one I grew up with was making $1 million a year. It wasn't even something that I like considered or thought of. It wasn't around me at all. But once I started to look and saw, oh, hey, people are doing this. There are people who are that I could like see or touch or feel. I think the belief that it's possible combined with the pain that you're currently in would be like the optimal things to have happening to change the habits.
Right, I agree to you. Thanks for sharing that with my audience. But let's look at the flip side of it, talking about fear. Now, sometimes the fear of creating new habits, right, can stop us in our tracks. So, how do we conquer fear?
Yeah, I've struggled with my relationship with fear, my whole life. I grew up very anxious and scared and social anxiety and nervous about a lot of things. I think the first thing that helped me conquer that was the realization that fear is normal. I wasn't different or odd or weird because I was scared of stuff. I realized everyone was scared. I didn't know when I was younger. I thought people like were kind of scared or not scared. You always hear things like someone's fearless, right? Or they just have no fear. Well, that's just not accurate, right? Like I've learned over time, everyone has fear. The difference with people who do things or not is they have courage, right? To be able to act or do things despite the fear. When I grew up, I would see fear as like a wall. I felt scared. I would run the other way. I would not push through fear, right? At all. And so first things first, what helped me was mentally understanding that it was okay to have fear. A, it was normal. And B, that everyone has it. And the difference is what you do about it. The fact that you have it is not bad or negative or the thing that should hold you back. It's what do you do even when you have the fear, which is easy to say, not easy to do. for me, after I had that realization of like what worked well, I got really deep into my breathing. So when I learned how to meditate was a game changer for me. Not everyone loves to hear that because it takes work. Like I meditate 20 minutes every day. It's not the easiest thing. You got to sit down and learn how to do it, but has been a total game changer. I've found when I can connect with my breathing and be present, those same skills of breathing and getting present serve me really well when I have fear. Of like I can anchor myself back into my breathing, being present, understanding it's okay. Most of the time, I realize when I feel fear, it's actually a positive thing. My body and brain are like, hey, something new or good or different's coming. Like it's actually a positive thing. So I reframe it as good, understand it's okay, and then really breathe my way through it would be the three things I would recommend.
Oh, all right, Jim. Now, going by what you just explained earlier, it's all obvious that you got your shift by observation. I mean, you had Jim Rohn as your mentor, right, or your model, right? And now I'd like us to just move to compounding habits, right? How were you able to inculcate these habits into your own personal life to get to where you are, because when you have a role model or a mentor who's been impacting you positively or influencing your life positively, I think you're going to start building up these habits gradually. It's not something that happens overnight. So how did that shift happen, and what was the experience like?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's interesting now looking on it where I've been doing the things for 7 years and now it's habitual and feels very easy. But certainly in the beginning, I had to like, force myself to do the things, whether I felt like doing them or not. What I first came to mind when you asked that question with the Jim Rohn video, I watched that video that I mentioned, The Day That Turns Your Life Around. Right after that, the next video, there was a goal setting workshop. And I think this is relevant, so I want to just tell this quick story. There was a goal setting workshop that Jim Rohn did, where basically it was like how to create your dream life vision. So you sit down, you take out a piece of paper, and you think, hey, what do I want my dream life to look like in 5, 10, 20 years from now? Like with no logistics, like no, like, oh, what I think I can do, or based on my current possibilities, just no rules. What would you create your life to look like? And I had never done that before. I kind of loosely maybe had some goals of what I wanted to do, but I never allowed my mind to expand to what this dream life would look like. And I think for me, once I did that and I thought about what this, possible life would look like, that's really what enabled me to start doing the habits. Like I think before when I struggled with not, I would set habits to lose weight, go to the gym, eat better, you name it, and I wouldn't stick with them. I think looking back upon it, I did not have a clear enough, moving enough vision of what I wanted my life to look like, and I didn't have enough emotional connection to it. So I think it was rooted really deep into that. Because after I got that vision and I had a clear vision of what I want my dream life to look like in 10 years, I was so connected to that that I was willing to do the things I didn't feel like doing every day. And it pulls you through like the tough days and the negative, like if I'm having a bad day or a bad week, but I'm so clear and connected on my vision 10 years from now, I can still get pulled past that. Where before, when I didn't have that clear vision, I didn't know what I wanted my life to look like in 10 years in detail. I would have a bad day or two and I'd let that break the chain. I'd be like, all right, I'm quitting this thing. I'm done doing this thing. So I think that that was really important. And then the second quick layer to that is once I had that dreamlike vision, it got easier to figure out what habits to do and like how to get there. Like, okay, what am I actually supposed to do? One of the things I love that Tony Robbins talks about is modeling success. And I use that all the time, which is like follow the path that someone has already been down. So if I want to be able to do X, who has done that? And not what are they currently doing now, but what did they do to get to that point, right? And so that's what I did with my habits, with how I grew my business, like all of the stuff that I've had, done well or had success with is rooted back in my mind at least into the fact that I got so clear on what I wanted my life to look like. And I would challenge anyone watching, if you haven't done that, and you're talking like this is a guy, I love tactics. I want 2 + 2 = 4. What's the sales language, whatever. I'd have said this is real woo-woo-y stuff, I would say back in the day, but it's totally changed my life. If you haven't done it yet, I would pull out a piece of paper and put like a 10-minute timer on your phone and think about what you would want your life to look like in 10 years. If you could have whatever you wanted, be whoever you wanted, live wherever you wanted with no rules, and do that once a week for the next like 4 to 6 weeks and spend maybe 10 minutes per day sitting down and thinking about that. And I bet that you'll have the energy required to discover what habits you need and enough motivation to be able to do them consistently.
Oh, right. And now, looking at that, can you tell me or tell my audience the power of gratitude habits? Because you shared in your own personal experience, and I'm sure you're going to share that with my audience, the importance, of having someone we can look up to for guidance. It's also absolutely very important because no man is an island. So can you quickly share some gratitude habits that we can develop really for a fulfilling life? Your personal experience that can suffice.
Yeah, gratitude's one of the other things. There's a small list of things that have like totally changed my life. Gratitude's one of those. And there's a really good book that's called The Gap and the Gain that's written by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. And in a nutshell, I could kind of save you the whole book. It's like when we look at our lives where we're at a current level, the gap is like between where we are and where we want to get to. So I could say, hey, I've got X amount of dollars or career. This is where I want to go. Anytime we look at the gap, the things we don't have yet that we want, inherently, right, that could be a motivating thing for some, but usually that makes you feel kind of not great. You're like, oh, I'm not there yet. And you don't feel great about yourself. Now, the opposite of that, the gain is where you are now compared to where you started or you came from. And that, when you look at that, makes you feel good. Hey, this is where I was. This is where I am now. Look at all the great that I've done. And I view gratitude in the same way that I look at that gap in the gain of like I spend so 2 times a day. First things first, I learned this. I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he has a company called Creatures. I saw him on a podcast. I want to give him credit, but he said when he wakes up in the morning that he would go lay or sit down, and for 60 seconds, and I would try this too, he would force a smile. So he wakes up, he forces a smile on his face, and he thinks about all the things that he's grateful for 1 minute. And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. I'll start doing that. I've been doing that every day for like 3 years. I do it every single morning when I wake up. I wake up, I come over here in this room that I'm in, I lay down, I force a smile on my face, and I think about everything that I'm grateful for. It totally changes how I feel in the morning. And then I do like a 15 to 20 minute meditation every day. And part of that is a little gratitude practice where I spend maybe 2 minutes just thinking in my mind about things that I'm grateful for. And I'm trying to always remind myself because I'm so in this gap, like where do I want to go in the future? So just a little bit of daily time of like what you've done so far that you've like you could this is amazing that we've done this. And then I think that's 60 seconds, right? When you wake up in the morning, it's like, what's the worst that happens if you start doing that? Like, what's the absolute worst case scenario is you waste 1 minute of your life? Best case, you feel so much better. So that'd be another little habit that I'd love someone listening to do.
Thank you, Jim Cogorno, for sharing your insight once again. And now, you talk about we visualizing what we want to become or what we like to achieve. Maybe in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, we set that goals. Now, that's the power of visualization, and that's how we can manifest what we desire in life. But I'd like you to respond to this question now. What is the role of habit in manifesting what we really want or desire in life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a couple ways we could go with that. The first thing I'd say overall with manifesting. So I learned that from a guy named Vishen Lakhiani, and he runs a company called Mind Valley. And there's a video on YouTube called 6 Phase Meditation. It's about 20 minutes, 21 minutes. Vishen Lakhiani, 6 Phase Meditation. And in there, he guides you through how to do some of the visualization. That's where I first learned it. And that was the video that I watched every day. So being able to do the visualization, like that starts with getting clear on the things that you want to have. And I think the order's there, and I'll get to the habits part. I think the order needs to go, you write the want, you do the visualization to already have those things. Like you put yourself in a future tense and you feel as though you already have those things. So you don't discover it during the visualization. You're clear on it beforehand, and then you visualize it as if you already have it. As an example,
Projects that you think is going to be beneficial to the audience of Live Well Live Omobola, Stephen, you can do so at this moment.
Yeah, thank you for that. So anyone who wants to see, like, we didn't really dig into social media and growing business stuff, but we have a golf channel, Eric Cogorno Golf, if you want to see kind of what we actually do with growing our channel and YouTube and stuff like that. But if you like the topics that we talked about here, we've got a YouTube channel called Lessons I've Learned with Eric Cogorno, where we talk more about the dream life and goal setting and all that stuff.
Right. Good to know. Wish you best of luck in your golf instruction that you do online and also in subsequent projects that you do, Eric. Can you share your social media handles and your website?
Awesome. Yeah, if you want to head over to any of those YouTube channels, Lessons I've Learned or Eric Cogorno Golf, that'd be great. The easiest way to contact me.
All right. Thank you once again. It's been well with Omobola Stephen, and I've been having a discussion with Eric Cogorno, a golf coach, entrepreneur, and personal development enthusiast. Really, we've been talking about how we can create great habits and the power of compounding habits. He's been able to share his expertise and also his personal experience in this regard. Thank you once again, Eric, for sharing your time and also your valuable contribution to the topic of discussion. Now, if you'd like to catch up with any missed episodes of the show, you can do so on any cross-promotion platform or any podcast distribution platform online and have a great time listening to the podcast on personal development and self-improvement. I need you always to stay safe. I talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you once again, Eric, for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.